fantastic. Can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, Fergal Anderson is my name, and we are on Leaf and Root Farm, which is a small holding, we call it. It's 30 acres in total. We're actually really only growing on about 5 acres of that, fruit and vegetables, and that's in the west of Ireland. It's not on the coast of the west of Ireland, but we're kind of about 50 kilometres in from the coast, about 2 hours from Dublin. And we sell all our produce exclusively into local markets, mainly into local restaurants, actually, and we've been doing this for 12, 13 years.
What brought you to start growing on this farm?
It was a big step to move back here because I'd actually left the country. I'd left Ireland. I wasn't living or working in Ireland. I was working in Brussels with this international peasant movement called La Campesina. And really through that movement of people, it's an international farmers movement, peasant farmers, I just met so many inspirational people, and most of those people were land workers, people that were on the land, that were spending their livelihoods working the land. And I actually learned through them that there's a culture of land work, there's a culture of existing in through a livelihood based on food production, directly on food production, something that was never really open to me. Maybe it wasn't in my sphere of reference, it wasn't in something I'd ever considered. I went to university and I studied humanities in university, and I'd never really considered the idea that I could, have a profession which was a land-based profession. So when I was working with Campesina, I suppose we found ourselves quite inspired by all the different people that we met, and more, I suppose, from the people that I realized that there was an alternative to the kind of life that I'd maybe been laid up for us up until then, and it was in that kind of world of peasant farming, which is not what you might expect, but we also saw a lot of examples that seemed to be working for people, and certainly working for people at a human level, in terms of like they seemed to be enjoying themselves and living a good life out of that. And I think that was something that was really important to us. So we took a long enough route to come back here, and we took 4 or 5 months visiting projects and farms and people and looking at things, and just watching and trying to learn from that, and then we came back here and we like tore into it. I would say we really were full of energy and excitement about this great idea we had.
I want to go back a second, because you said you went to before coming back, let's say, here to your farm, but you traveled and went to some other farms. Did you go to other countries, or where did you go? What type of farms did you see?
We took a van. I came back to Ireland, bought a van, drove it back to Brussels, and it was a very basic van that we decided we were going to live in. And we actually visited a really interesting mix of projects. I mean, some of them were farmers who were starting up, like we were planning to start up, so we'd see like somebody starting up on a small area of land, how are they selling their things, how are they producing their things. And other places were, I suppose more like cooperatives or things like that were established like in the 1960s, after the 1968 student protests in France, for example. We visited a very inspirational place in the south of France, which was people living collectively as well, with shared income and resources. They had their own radio station, they had their own complete facilities for in terms of like food production. They did wine, they made their own timber from woodland and things. So we saw lots of different aspects of that, and at one point we did have this idea that we wanted to be part of a collective project, like something more that maybe went a little bit deeper than just the idea of going back to the land. But all those things bring complications too, and I think for us the easiest path was just to find the land. And when we knew the land was here, the meadow was always in the back of my mind, and so we moved back to Ireland, and like I said, we had the opportunity then to start off without any complications as such, and invest our own time and energy in it without complicating it, and I think it was a good decision in the end.
So you're back, and you have this land. There's nothing growing on it yet per se. Nothing. It's not a farm yet. No. So what were some of the first things? How big of the plot did you start seeding? What were the first things that you started to grow?
What happened that first year was actually amazing, because we plowed up about an acre and a half. We put a polytunnel up on a small part of it, and we started cultivating by hand another very small area, but most of it we didn't even get to it. And we had this beautiful display of flowers. I still remember we had this beautiful display of mustard and poppies that grew, all the seed that had been underneath the surface for so long. When we plowed it, it all came up and it germinated, and that was really beautiful. And actually, you learn so much doing the work that we do, but you realize how long some of those seeds have been waiting, because they wouldn't have been in the meadow. A lot of those, some of them, they're just waiting for a chance for the conditions to be right. And when we broke the ground there, the conditions were right, and up they came, and they gave us an amazing display. And so I suppose that was worth it in its own way.
Tell me your day. What does it imply? What time do you wake up? I'm sure you've had that question before, but I really want to kind of walk us through what's your day like from morning, let's say, to
the
evening.
Day, every day is different on the farm. And it's kind of been different since we got here. It's changed in recent years because we have a daughter, so now our rhythm is kind of based around her, getting her to school. But after that, I mean, I suppose we've actually got a little bit more structure since she's started going to school, and she's got the rhythm that we need to kind of follow around that. But in terms of activities, what I could be doing, it's hugely varied. It really is. And like, I mean, sometimes I think that's part of what I love about the work that we do, is that it is so varied. I mean, and it's not like, you know, people sort of think, oh, all you're doing is planting and weeding, and but actually you need to kind of be a jack of all trades, you know. And like in these days I would have to do plumbing work, or mixing cement, or timber construction, or working with tractor, or cutting grass, or pruning trees, or harvesting, or weeding, or transplanting, or so I mean, really what I try and do now, and I've gotten better at managing my time, is to work two kind of blocks, a block in the morning and a block in the afternoon. And I think, I mean, my approach to work has also changed. I think I've tried to work a lot smarter than we used to. We've probably gotten an awful lot better. We can do things quicker than we used to be able to do them. And I've gotten better. And I think this is actually a key thing for the work that I'm in, is to kind of try and foresee the work that you have to do in the future. So you have to kind of imagine 5 steps in advance. And in recent years, just in the last year actually, we've started getting woofers, these kind of people who come to work on organic farms. And that has been a big help. I mean, I think we've really noticed it this year, just in terms of having somebody that I can work with, that I can kind of have a little bit of help with. And we don't need a huge amount of help, but a little bit goes a long way. So it's made our days easier, I think, and made the seasonal year easier to handle.
The channel, the theme is called Twerk Your Mind, and it's to give people kind of like a little sneak peek insight into alternative ways of living, or people that just kind of, they don't believe there's a box. They're like, I'm gonna do my own thing, and so, or at least try and attempt. So if someone would like to come and woof, as you say, and say, okay, I know nothing about farming, but I'd like to have the experience. How do you pick? How does one apply for that? How does that work?
It's an online, I mean, there's a website which you register on if you want to participate in that. There's a few different ones that I know people use, and like I know in my own talking to other farmers, there's a couple of different websites that people use: Workaway, HelpX, Woofing, and they're all kind of based around the same principle, that you come, you get kind of hosted, in the sense that you get your accommodation, sometimes you get food, and that in return you're working for the people that are there on their farm, or in their house sometimes, or in their whatever. So they're all online services that are kind of managed by those I guess they're not-for-profits that manage those portals. And we get requests, and I mean, we've actually found a lot of the people that apply are actually on a bit of a journey. They're trying to find a new way, or some people have left their job and are trying to find a new direction. Sometimes it's young people who are exploring new opportunities. And like, I mean, I've sort of begun to regard that as really something positive that we can share with people. So like, I'm happy to kind of greet those people, meet them on the farm. Obviously we select depending on, the timing and, availability, and who seems to be on our wavelength, you know what I mean? You want to have somebody there that you can communicate with and get on with, and but in general we've had a really good experience with it. And I think it's been, also quite good to see young people who are engaged and interested, and I mean, if I can help convince people that there's an alternative way of life there that you can enjoy, great, you know what I mean? And if that gives them an opportunity and they step out of whatever life they're doing or into a new channel and find something different, even better. So like, I'm beginning to think that's a really positive thing that we can do. I used to think this is a one-way street, we're getting free help, but actually it works for the people that come as well.
I want to know a little bit more about Talamh Bio.
Talamh Bio,
Yes, because I know there's an element of also maybe sharing information.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, look, it's a really good point you're making. I think it's something we both have this interest in learning from, and like like I said, when we started off, we didn't have any fixed ideas about how things should be done or not be done. So we've kind of approached it with quite an open mind. And I've tried to retain that open mind all the time and say, look, this is an opportunity to constantly learn new things. And it's been an opportunity to learn new skills for me. There's things I couldn't do, and now I can do. I can do lots of things that I never thought I might be able to do that I can now do. And I'm still learning to do new things. So like, I mean, yeah, on one side is that constant kind of lifelong learning that I really enjoy, and I think that's something that we value. And on top of that is that sharing, because it's, you know, you want to sort of exchange and share, and that's part of the learning process as well, because obviously that is a two-way street always. I think you actually learn from sharing with other people sometimes. And Talamh Bio, part of the reason we have that organisation, Talamh Bio is the Irish Farmers Organisation, which this is the byline land, people and community. So we established that must be 5 or 6 years ago now, with a group of like-minded farmers. Basically, I mean, we were going to different events around the country, and I was meeting similar people and people that were in a similar mindset. And I said, well, look, we don't have any kind of organisation which sort of represents us, which talks about the kind of things that we're talking about, which, and you've got to say, imagine that absence of conversation is happening at the same time as this huge conversations happening around food and agriculture and farming. And one of the points that I kept on making to people was saying, look, there's a conversation happening and our voice is not being heard in that conversation. So we're hearing agribusiness, we're hearing, you know, corporations, we're hearing big farming, but we're not hearing anyone talking about agroecology, about how land relates to people and place, and how, you know, about all those things that we are all learning about, that interaction between land, food production, and society, that I think are really valuable lessons. And I talk about peasant culture and things like that, which are lessons, like, that are very, very old lessons, and they're not necessarily being communicated in society properly. And I think that's our role as practitioners to do that work. And so, like, Talamh Bio was established to do that, to say, let's bring our unique perspective as practitioners, as land-based workers, into the conversation, and stand over it and defend it.
Is this an organic farm? What makes an organic farm?
Okay, well, there's a technical answer to that, which I'm going to give you the correct answer to this question. An organic farm means you're certified organic. It means that there's a set of standards, which are the organic standards, which are set by the European Union in our case, which you need to comply with in order to be able to sell your food as organic. And I mean, I have to say, I have a great faith in the organic standards. Some people say, oh, organic's not organic. Organic is organic, because if you go to a shop and you buy something, it's been through quite a long, stringent control process. It means that you're not allowed to use synthetic fertilizers, you're not allowed to use synthetic pesticides. Some of these things have organic alternatives, like biologically based pesticides, or soil inputs or improvers, etc., etc. But in general, I mean, the principles of organics are at their root improving soil health, minimizing the impact on the natural world, closing nutrient cycles in your farm. So these are all really good things.
Let's say someone like me, city girl, I want to have a bit more of a connection with nature.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a farm. I don't have access to a farm. What would be, and I live in a flat, let's say, what would be the next best thing?
Well, it depends what you're looking for. I mean, I think all cities are surrounded by their hinterlands, which would have been places which produced food for them in the past. And so there's always some green spaces, there's always areas around. I think it's a challenge, actually, for people in cities to find outlets and ways of doing that. I think we have to be careful as well of how we conceptualize nature. There is a move to reconnect with nature, but nature is more complex than just something that we can reconnect with, or it's something which shapes us, something which we are shaped by, and I think it's not always benevolent. Life and death are both part of nature, and so we have a tendency sometimes to romanticize it a little bit, and I think it's important to recognize that human beings have built up different strategies for dealing with nature, if we're living within nature. One of the key problems of being in a city for me is that all your services are provided by the kind of capitalist system. So like your energy, your shelter, your food, and so you have a limited amount of autonomy when all your primary needs are supplied by that system. And that's what gives people in the countryside, or farmers or peasants, the ability to think freely is the autonomy over their shelter, over their food. Once you have those things in your own hands or in your community hands, you have the freedom, mental freedom and physical freedom, to be able to think differently about how society functions. If you're receiving all those things through an existing system, it's very hard for you to escape that system. So I would say actually the best way to reconnect with nature is to try and gain some autonomy over your primary needs, be it shelter, be it food, be it energy, and through that you'll find that reconnection, because nature ultimately provides all of those things for us.